Nothing's happening.
Not yet. Okay, let's go.
All right, good morning. It is 10 a.m. and I will call this meeting of the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee to order. Our actual chair, Annie Koreman, is tuning in virtually today, so I'll be chairing this meeting because from the Zoom, you can't really see when people raise their hands in chambers. Do we have any public comment? Great. Do we have any changes to the agenda? No changes. Great. Minutes approval. Can I have a mover for the minutes of December 18? Randy moves, Susan seconds. Any comments? All right, we'll do roll call votes. Susan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And Greg Mezey hasn't arrived yet. I think I'm supposed to say that out loud. Okay.
Yep.
All right, advisory board appointments. We have a lot. For the Environmental Management Council, we've got Elaine Tietjen, seat number 7 at-large representative, term expires December 31, 2024. J. Louise Bruce, at-large member, term expires December 31, 2024. Christine Collins, Town of Ulysses representative, term expires December 31, 2025. Peggy Ficken, Town of Groton representative, term expires December 31, 2025. And Stephen P. Bisson, Town of Dryden representative, term expires December 31, 2025. For the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, we have Monica Roth, agricultural representative, term expires December 31, 2026. Jenna Kane, lodging representative, term expires December 31, 2026. And Bethany Parisi, arts and culture representative, term expires December 31, 2026. And finally, for the County Planning Advisory Board, all 5 of these people have their term expiring December 31, 2026, so I'm just going to say that once. And the people are Heather McDaniel, Economic Development Representative, Fernando de Aragon, Transportation Representative, Joseph Bowes, Housing Representative, Leslie Schill, Education Representative, and Andrew Zepp, Land Preservation and Public Land Management Representative. And that is that. Next, on to the...
We need to vote on that one. We need
Oh,
a
we
mover
need
and
to
a
vote. Oh,
seconder.
yes, okay. Can I have a mover for all of those? Susan. And Randy seconds. Okay, roll call vote again. Susan.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Annie.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you.
Welcome.
Told you I'd mess up. All right, now on to the chair's report. Our real chair, Annie, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have just a couple things. So I was wondering, I know we were, and you were helping Veronica trying to figure out a time for the 2024 rest of the peak meetings. Did you folks come up with anything, or are we still working on that?
We came up with 10 to noon on the second Monday of the month, I think.
Katrina's nodding her head yes.
Okay, great, yes. So
10 to 2,
1 week
second
earlier than
Monday.
this year.
Okay, great. So we were doing it the same day BCP, but in the morning.
Well, BCP has moved to
Oh, well, same day
a
that they
third-
used to do.
okay, yeah.
All right, thanks. And as far as the boards that we all sit on, I'll be reaching out to folks individually unless they want to say maybe at the end of the meeting at committee reports whether they still want to stay on the boards that they're on. And just to let folks know, even if you're not on peak, you could still be on any of the advisory boards. So hint, hint, Susan. It's a possibility. You don't have to, but so I'll be reaching out to people, or if you know, you can say at the end. And I think at the next meeting, I'll also reach out to people when I talk with them to see if they have any goals for 2024, and then we'll put that on the agenda for next meeting. And we had a small skip the stuff meeting with the folks from Zero Waste Ithaca, Veronica and I did, and they really want us to see about exploring a local law, and I sent an email out to Kat and Leo. I don't know if they want to say now in their report. If they responded back, we've been inundated with hundreds of emails, so I didn't see it, but it's up to them if they want to respond back to that now or later. I'll leave it up to you, Veronica and Shamer, to figure that out.
Leo,
I could do it now or with department updates.
Why not now?
Okay, sure. Yes, we still owe you a reply to that email. Kat and I did speak briefly onto it. We need to understand what's involved a little bit more, especially in the area of enforcement. The enforcement that is going to be required there, we believe is quite different than anything that we're used to now, or is covered in any of our existing Chapter 140 solid waste laws. With that said, let's see, Liz Cameron has also reached out to us, offered a meeting so we can get a little better understanding from her as well as to how we can better understand what we're looking at, what kind of scope we're looking at, what kind of time we're looking at. So we're going to become much more familiar with it, and that's where we stand with it right now.
Awesome, thank you. If I can butt in one comment, something I found important from the meeting that Annie mentioned was, well, in answer to a question that I and many have, which is why would we need a law to enforce this? Can't we just do like suggest this practice? And this is, to remind people, skipping the stuff is having restaurants and food places not give out disposable cutlery, napkins, condiment packets unless requested. And I know a lot of our favorite local spots already do it that way. So it seems like, oh, maybe we could just encourage them all to. And what someone from Zero Waste Ithaca pointed out was that the big chains are only going to switch practices if there's a local law, most likely. It is, in a lot of cases, the people who work physically in Tompkins County don't even have the authority to change what they do. But a law would give us that leverage.
Well, from what I understand, there certainly is benefits there for the businesses, the restaurants, the takeout organizations. Kat and I had talked, and I believe may have been in a meeting with Ann and Yayoi, and we had mentioned, between now and in establishing a law, we could try to work with a few businesses through our Rebusiness Partners program. So through that program, our department assists restaurants and different types of businesses and reducing their waste, recycling right, waste diversion. And we have considered that to be proactive and meet with a few of those businesses, organizations, and get their take on it. Really see how welcoming that may be to a business or an organization. And there's certainly some businesses that come to mind that we've worked with in the past on some different initiatives. Ithaca Bakery is one that usually is more than welcome to work with us, and there's others. So yes, Veronica, I think your comment's well taken, and I think it's a good approach to really just get a good understanding from that business as to what the positives are for them, what the negatives are for them too. We'd like to understand that. Yeah.
Awesome. Annie.
Thanks, yeah. I'd like to be included when you sit down with Liz Cameron from Whole Health. Just thinking of some other counties and municipalities, the enforcement goes through their health department. And I believe Veronica had an initial conversation with Whole Health, but if it works out or if it makes sense that the enforcement comes from then, I think the important thing is just trying to figure out, how to enforce it if we pass a local law.
Yeah, well, definitely. The enforcement, our workload, our budgets, and all of that need to be taken into consideration. But if you don't mind, I'd just like to see if Kat McCarthy has anything to add to any of that discussion. She's our waste reduction program person. Well, she's our deputy director, but coming from that area, she may have some comments.
Yeah, Kat, go for it. And then Randy had a comment.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of what Leah's been saying, we're interested to understand better kind of how this could work. How does it work for businesses of all scales in the county? So if it's being implemented across the board, how does it affect the smaller, mid-size, and then to your point, the larger chains, obviously, some of the ones where they don't have the local control. So I think that certainly we're interested in exploring and understanding better opportunities to reduce waste. And certainly our draft solid waste plan also alludes to those pieces. So I think, we're looking to understand it a little bit better.
Cool. Randy.
Thank you. I'm not excited about local law for this, but as you think about where Thompson counties come, 25 years ago, maybe longer, they started a living wage program, which many companies voluntarily joined because it was good for their business. And if you look at even our building programs, whether you're silver or gold, those are all voluntary programs, but people get certified in some way. And I think that's a better approach in my mind. So,
Other comments on this topic? Seeing none. Annie, do you have more for a chair's report?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. And Greg Mezey is with us in chambers and in fact has been for several minutes. Next up, County Administrator's Report. We have Norma Jane in chambers.
Thank you. I really have no reports this morning. If folks have questions for me, happy to answer.
Questions for Norma? Well, that was easy. Thank you. Next, we are on to the Department of Recycling and Materials Management again, and you've got some updates for us.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you a quick update on a couple of things. Westlaw Group, we just entered into their third year of their contract. And I just thought I would make mention that we're kind of on the topic of laws, sort of. The primary scope of work for Westlaw in 2024 is going to involve reviewing and providing recommendations for amendments to the county's local solid waste management laws. They're better known as Chapter 140. And as a reminder, those consist of recycling, which is better known as mandatory recycling laws, licensing of haulers or hauler licensing, the trash tag system for collection, and then lastly is disposal, which is better known as illegal dumping. I think I've mentioned in previous committee meetings that there's a need for these laws to be updated. They haven't been updated since they became law. So whether it's the fines, whether it's loopholes, things that aren't working quite right, that's what we're going to be attacking. So we'll probably be giving an update on that monthly as we go forward through 2024. That's the laws. And then I know over the past year, 16 months, we've focused and talked a lot about ACRs, which is average commodity pricing. average commodity revenue. The first, I thought I had it written down here. There it is. So the first 3 quarters of 2023, the average monthly ACR equaled $39 per ton. The last quarter of 2023 averaged $58.86. So that's going from monthly January of an ACR of roughly $22 per ton to December, roughly $68 per ton. So that's a bit of good news that I wanted to share. We don't think too much in the industry when we see 1 or 2 months of increase in the trend for the pricing. But with 3 months it's a good sign, and January looks to be promising as well. So I thought I would share that with you. Just to put that in perspective, the difference between January of last year at $22 a ton and December at $68 a ton, that difference was $27,000 in one given month. So it puts it in perspective a little bit. And that still is a low ACR at 68. Our budget for this year is $85 per ton. So that's it.
All right, thank you, Leo. Questions? Annie?
So thanks for that info, Leo. You said the budget was $85 per ton?
$85 per ton,
yes. Which is above even the 68?
Yes, it is.
But you feel pretty confident in that it'll be going to that?
If my crystal ball works correctly, yes. I think we're going to see that trend upwards for 6-8 months. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I have maybe a silly question. This is the price for what? Just the average of all recyclables?
Yeah. So you take, all the materials, whether we refer to it as positive revenue or negative revenue. Glass is a negative revenue. So you factor in the price that we get when we sell mixed paper, corrugated cardboard, tin, aluminum, the different plastics. All of that's averaged out and is referred to as an average commodity revenue, or ACR.
Well, thank you. Other questions for Leo on this? Susan?
Can you explain negative revenue?
Yeah. So glass, for instance, is a negative $35 per ton. And OCC, or corrugated cardboard, is $90 a ton. So if you were averaging the two, you average the negative with the positive. So the negative revenue number factors into the equation to calculate.
Excuse me, what I'm actually asking is, why is it a negative?
The value of it.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I piggyback on that? Is that glass in the single stream recycling or glass in the separate glass dumpster, or both? That's
a great question and great point. That is the glass that goes in the mix, the single stream mix that's picked up at the curb. The source separated glass right now is 0. So when you separate out your wine bottles or whatever glass bottles, it's 0. We do have transportation costs to market, but ACR would be 0 on that.
Well, 0 is higher than negative, so I will keep bringing my source separated glass.
We'll take 0 when it comes to glass.
Annie?
Yeah, just to further clarify what Susan was asking, because now I have a question regarding that. So we send it out all, because it's not separated, most of it. So the price for the commodity, that's after it gets passed us. So that's after Casella takes it and deals with it and separates it, right?
Yeah, the material comes into our facility. It gets transferred to Ontario County's processing facility. All of that single stream mixed up material gets separated. We pay a processing cost for that separation. In return, we get a revenue share on the ACR, or the value of the materials.
Okay, so we're not seeing, so like say the negative price, which is, so that means they're having to pay somebody to take the glass.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so we're not actually ourselves paying somebody to take it. That's Casella doing it, and then we're seeing the average. That's why we come up with that average.
That's correct. I mean,
That's to us.
I do certainly see the numbers in that formula and the value of all those different materials, but to answer your question, yes, we pay, I'm sorry, it rolls up into one average number.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on this topic? We do have a resolution here. Acceptance of grant funding from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, NYSDEC, Municipal Waste Reduction and Recycling, MWRR program, ID 12164. Greg moves, Susan seconds, and Haley's coming up to the table. So does that mean you're going to talk about it? No, Leo.
Actually, I'll toss it into Kat's court.
Sure. So this is a grant that we've applied for that is a reimbursement for expenses related to waste reduction and recycling. It provides up to 50% reimbursement of eligible project costs. So that would support costs for items such as a portion of salary for 2 of our staff members who do recycling education and outreach, things like our recycling guidelines or our online support tools for when is my recycling day and more. This is a grant that we typically receive annually, and we've gotten notification of the intent to award. So we're just looking to make sure that this gets brought forward as well.
Randy.
Yes, thank you. Was this in your 2024 budget as a revenue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
Yanni? Oh, was
Sorry, I
that?
forgot to lower my hand.
All right. Anything else on this resolution? Love to get money. Let's have a vote. Susan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. All right. Anything else from Recycling and Materials Management?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Great. On to the Department of Planning and Sustainability. Now we've got Haley. Let's get the resolution. Well, do you want to do the resolution first? I don't know.
A report from Katie, or, because that's all I have is the resolution.
Okay, let's do that first, and then we'll go to Katie. So the resolution here is acceptance of New York State Energy Research and Development Authority Clean Energy Communities Grant for Improving Health with Portable Induction Cooktops, ID 12155. Can I have a mover? Susan moves, Greg seconds. Haley, take it away.
Sure. So I came to you several months ago, I think about 8, to talk about this program. It took NYSERDA a bit of time to review our application, but we were successful. And so we're looking to roll out this program. Just as a little refresher, we'll be pairing it with the Healthy
We
Neighborhood.
vote on the resolution? Susan?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Annie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. All right. Katie, do you have more Department of Planning and Sustainability updates?
I don't have a report today, but like Norma, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Randy?
Question, Katie, I was just curious, does the Thompson County Planning Department meet with the city planners on a regular basis, or how do you guys cooperate, if at all?
Yeah, we have a standing meeting roughly every other month with leadership from city planning and the IURA. And we only meet on an as-needed basis, but we definitely touch base and figure out if there are topics we need to discuss. And our department occasionally convenes all municipal planners in the county just as a chance to touch base and see if there are any burning issues that we need to jointly address.
Great, thank you.
Other questions for?
I'll just mention too that sustainability staff, we meet with city sustainability staff every other week just to connect and go through things.
Other questions for Katie and Haley? All right, thank you. We are moving along quickly. Next up, we have Cornell Cooperative Extension. And, oh, you're hiding. Come on up. Do you want me to be here? Is that fair? You can come to the big table, whatever's comfortable.
Hi, everyone.
But if you wouldn't mind taking down the sign in front of you so you're not mislabeled. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Buck from Cooperative Extension, and my position there is Farmland Protection and Ag Marketing Educator. So I provide staff support to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, and I'm responsible for the ag districts, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. I wanted to start with a presentation. Do you have that queued up that I sent you? No.
That's typically not something that we do. We don't typically share. It would be something that.
It's in our packet.
I have my laptop.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
can.
We have something in our
We can
packet,
share.
don't we?
I think so.
We'll just have a little rest while the tech gets set up. Or we can all preview the slides, which are in our agenda packets.
Veronica,
Yes.
while we're waiting for that to queue up, I just want to check with recycling materials management and planning if the second Monday.
PCAT, but it's one of my all-time favorite experiences. I learned so much and have a brand new respect for all of the people who do farming, because we had some of the most interesting discussions at those meetings I've ever participated in, so thank you.
Susan, you're going to be driving a truck in no time.
I really would love to try to drive your truck.
Randy?
I'm on the committee as well, and I'd like to stay on that if possible. And we've been through the Ag District. Crystal's reported on this for 3 meetings, 4 meetings, quite a few meetings. So it has gone through a lot of discussion in that committee. And I want to thank Crystal for her work, and it turned out very well, I thought.
Thank you. And on that perfect segue, Crystal, looks like you're up and running.
All right, so I wanted to start off today, before we go through the specifics of the Ag District review and the proposed changes to the district, with just a quick overview of what Ag Districts do. I'm sure that you guys have seen this before, but just so we're it's all fresh in our minds. This is Ag District. Ag Districts are enabled by the ag district law, and this part of it was adopted in 1971, so it's a long-standing program. It's one of the most important ways that we protect farmland in New York State. It allows farmers to go about the business of farming, and I'll go through the details of it in just a minute. I wanted to point out that when we talk about ag districts, there's lots of properties that are included in the ag district. Some of them are residential, some of them are forested. What we're talking about in terms of the impact of the ag district law is it really mostly pertains to commercial farming. So it does not provide protections to homesteads, backyard gardens, et cetera. It doesn't really have a major impact directly on residential properties. It's really addressing commercial farming properties. Ag districts are reviewed every 8 years. So during the 8-year review process, that's the time when properties can be added to or removed from the district. We have 2 ag districts in Tompkins County. We're talking about ag district number 2, which is on the western side of the county. There's also an open enrollment period that happens every year, and during that time, landowners can request to be added to the district. But the 8-year review process is the only time in which you can remove properties from the district. The process is a long process for the 8-year review. So it's 300 days. It starts 300 days before the district anniversary. And there's a lot of steps involved. So the first part is we do a survey of farmers and farmland owners in the district to gauge what they're doing and their issues and opportunities for them as agricultural landowners in the district. There's a 30-day open enrollment period. The open enrollment period for this district review is in September and October. And then there's quite a bit of review and discussion that happens before the Ag and Farmland Protection Board. So we kind of sit down and talk about what are the criteria, kind of review what's been done in the past, what are the criteria for removal from the district or adding to the district. We look at maps and review specific areas that might meet those criteria. And then we take the recommendations from the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, we bring those out to the towns for each municipality that's in the district. So we met with the planning boards in the towns as well as the ag committees. And in this case, the ag committee, there's only one in the town of Ithaca. And we also met with planning staff in all of the towns. So that would be Ulysses, Enfield, Newfield, Danby, and Ithaca. And then once the, based on that input, the input of the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, then, and we have kind of a preliminary set of changes that are proposed to the district, we then notify all the property owners with potential changes, and they have a 3-week period to comment. So I spoke with a number of, I think about 10 different property owners that had received a letter and had questions, concerns, and that is then taken into account and generally deferred to. If somebody wants to stay in the district, they would stay in the district. If somebody is interested in being added to the district, or yeah, if somebody doesn't want to be added to the district, we wouldn't add them to the district. So then we bring it to you. This is kind of your first pass at it. And the next step would be a public hearing. It also goes through a seeker process, comes back to this committee, and then adoption by the county legislature in April, May. And I don't know why that got cut off. Okay, so I wanted to walk through the key parts of the ag district law. And again, the things that we're talking about really apply only to commercial farms, with one exception, which I'll talk about in a moment. The first part is it protects, yes?
Is the definition of commercial anybody that generates $10,000 of revenue or more, is that?
No, so I will back up for a second and say that This is a different program from ag assessment, and that criteria is set for ag assessment, the $10,000. For ag district, it's much broader. So it generally, the ag and markets looks to see whether there's really any commercial activity going on. It can be quite small, and it usually comes to cooperative extension first for a kind of a look at to see what we would interpret as being commercial. But much lower than the $10,000 threshold, and it is a case-by-case basis. Yeah. So the first part is a protection from unreasonably restrictive local laws, and this is a key part of it, maybe the most important part of it for a lot of folks, and really is a good one really to think about in terms of what the county does and for farmland protection. So this says that for a commercial farm, if the underlying zoning site plan review regulations are unreasonably restrictive, which I'll talk about in a second, then they don't apply. The landowner can apply to ag and markets if the local municipality were to try and enforce a regulation, and ag markets can determine that they are unreasonably restrictive, which means that the law would not apply to a commercial farm. So this comes into play, say, if somebody wanted to build a large barn and the local zoning regulations limited the size of the barn, that farmer, if they're a commercial farmer, would be allowed to build that size barn. And there aren't, of course, a lot of ways in which the county influences local regulations like that, so I think it's an important one to think about the impact of. The next one is a protection against a private nuisance suit if a farmer has sound agricultural practices. So that means that if a farmer needs to spread manure, work late at night, make noises associated with commercial farming, and their neighbors object to those noises, they cannot file a private nuisance suit against the farmer. They are protected. And then the last one, again, relating directly to commercial operations, is that oh no, I'm sorry, there's two more. So there's, this one relates to projects that are the purchase of land or the use of public funding within the ag district. And it goes, if the public funding or the public purchases land within an ag district, goes through a notice of intent process. What that means is that Ag and Markets reviews the project. It also means that the County Ag and Farmland Protection Board reviews and comments on the project, and the Ag Commissioner can require modifications to the project if it deems that it is counter to the goals of the Ag District. Where this comes up mostly is with solar projects, because you're using NYSERDA funding for those solar projects, so that means that it goes through the notice of intent process, and Ag and Markets and the Ag and Farmland Protection Board can comment on the potential impacts of that project, looking at commercial agriculture. So for example, sometimes we'll see them comment on or request modification based on the location of solar panels if it's in prime farmland. There's also a limitation on the local benefit assessment. So this comes into play if there's, say, an expansion of an existing water district or a new water district. So typically the cost of that would be allocated to the landowner based on road frontage or lot size. And the ag district law says that it needs to only be charged based on the immediate residential piece of property. So it's like the half-acre piece of property around the residential. So the farming piece is not charged in that same way. And it only applies to new districts. So if it's an existing district, this doesn't apply, but if a water district is expanded into an area that's an ag district, then this part of the regulation would apply. So all of those that I've mentioned so far, again, only apply to commercial farms, commercial being a broad
term. The last piece here is a real estate disclosure. This applies to all properties within the ag district. It basically makes it so that when you buy or sell property in the district, you need to have the buyer sign a disclosure form that says they understand they are buying property within an agricultural district and they should expect the normal sounds and smells associated with agriculture. Before I talk about the specific recommendations to modify the district, are there any questions about how ag districts work?
Not seeing any.
So I provided you with a report, a draft report, which we're required to do as part of the process. And I want to direct your attention to page 10, which is where we talk about the specific modifications to the district. And I was going to walk through each of the towns to talk about the specific changes. You have maps in your packet as well. So on page 10, there's an itemized list by municipality. Those numbers and then letters correspond with the maps if you want to see what the specific changes are. We'll start with the town of Ulysses. And before I talk about the proposed additions to the district, I want to go through very briefly what criteria we used in looking for potential properties to add to the district. Mainly this was to identify properties that are already receiving agricultural assessment but are not in the ag district. So that agricultural assessment indicates that it's viable active ag land, and so we would want that to be part of the district. Also looking for any holes in the district. It's much better to have it not be Swiss cheese. Like, it works better if it's not wholly. And then also we looked at farmland, regardless of whether it's receiving ag assessment, if it is not in an area that's zoned by the municipality for development. So if, for example, in the town of Ulysses, we have a couple of areas where it's outside of hamlet zoning, and those, even though they're not receiving ag assessment, they're agricultural properties, and we would want to add those. So, and then for removals from the district, we're looking for places where there's been development and that development's not adjacent to agriculture and it just doesn't seem to fit well with the goals of the district, or areas where there's potential conflict between agricultural or non-active ag and higher density zoning. And also if there's any island properties that are part of the district but not adjacent to the rest of the district. So the town of Ulysses, I'll start with property number 1 on the map. This is probably the most challenging property to think about and one that would be helpful to have input from this committee on. So number 1, it's on the map there or in your printed map. It's up near the lake, just south of Teganic Falls. This is a property that is receiving ag assessment, and it's receiving ag assessment because it's enrolled in the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. And so because it receives ag assessment, the AFPB recommends it for addition to the district. However, the town does not want to have it added to the district. The property owner does want to be added to the district. The concern from the town is that it is located in their conservation zone, and they feel that having it in the district is counter to the goals of the conservation zone. I included a little bit more information in a memo to you on this. I also included in your packet a memo from the town planning board on this issue, just basically saying that they don't want it to be added because it's in a conservation zone. So I thought we would take a moment to discuss this property. Randy?
Yeah, we discussed this one quite a bit in our Glen Farmland Protection Board meeting. It was unanimous that we thought it should be in the district. The owner of the we sided with the owner of the property, basically. So,
I have a question, which is what does the conservation zone mean and what are these special protections?
Right. So the conservation zone, it's because of its proximity to the lake, and because there's other sensitive natural features in that area, including erodible soils. The zoning there is quite prohibitive. It has fairly large lot sizes, restrictions on how many subdivisions can take place, and restrictions on how large the footprint can be of new buildings. So most of that, none of that really applies directly to this property because it's enrolled in Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. If in the future the property was not enrolled in that and the farmer wanted to build, say, a barn, the restriction on that says that no new buildings can have a footprint larger than 3,000 square feet, which is very, very small for a barn. So that's where that would come in. The property owner is not really interested in that. He's interested in protecting this as farmland. That's his primary goal. And so likes the idea of the ag district because of that. He currently has a contract through CREP, I think for another 10 years, and it can be extended beyond that fairly readily. But that, yeah, that's kind of, and I think the AFPB feels that he kind of meets the criteria and he's interested in protecting the farmland, and so that seems to be a good match for the ag district. But the town feels like it wants to maintain those more strict regulations on it. Yeah.
Is it currently being farmed?
So the northern, if you look at the detail in the map, we can kind of zoom into on the screen.
Yeah.
The northern portion of that, the northwestern portion of the property, which looks in the air photo as hayfield, you can kind of see that it's
The green? It's kind of like a light green.
It's like
brown.
a light green brown.
Yeah.
That larger piece there, that's what's enrolled in CREP, and that does allow for one harvest of hay per year, but it's not being farmed aside from that. The northeastern, or the southeastern, I guess the eastern portion of the property that is on the other side of the gorge there, that is where the property owner has his house and a small farmstead. I think he has like a little bit of orchard, backyard orchard stuff, backyard bees, but not like a farm.
And this is west of Teganic, right? So it's not right on the lake. There's the road in between.
Yes, there's the road in between. And this piece of land, the surrounding areas there are not in farming, mainly because they're quite steep. This is a little less steep. It's still fairly steep and it does have erodible soils, but it's able to have that hay on it, which is a little different than what you're seeing in the nearby areas. I will also mention that there are other properties currently in the ag district that are in this conservation zone. And the planning board discussed those properties and felt that they wouldn't want to take it out. Those are active farms and they want to support farming, but they don't feel comfortable adding in an additional property.
Annie?
Thank you, Crystal, for detailing this. So I guess I'm not understanding, from the perspective of what could happen if this is put in. I mean, you said about the size of the building, say, for instance, a barn. Is there anything else that could happen with if this property is put into the conservation district that the town's concerned about, or that someone sees that a potential for some change outside of what the current zoning is?
Yeah, it's, that's the one that, in looking at their zoning, that raised a red flag in terms of potentially being counter to an ag district. There's nothing else I could see in there that a commercial farm would want to do that would not be permitted. It doesn't, of course, affect the day-to-day operations of a farm, like zoning. That's not the role of zoning. It doesn't do that. And I don't see subdivision being something that relates to commercial farming. So it's really the size of a new building that would relate to, would be counter to the ag district. I guess the other thing, of course, to remember here is that there's a couple other pieces to the ag district law. So, for example, if this property was used for something that was loud or smelly, like manure spreading or a loud tractor early in the morning, and a neighbor objected to that, then this would protect the property owner against that nuisance suit. And also, if a solar farm were proposed for that location, being in the ag district would, I don't see that that would be counter to what the town would want, but it would make it so it would go through the NOI process. But I think it's really that there's not a direct conflict here. It's that the town wants to maintain control and the property owner wants to be in the ag district, but there's nothing happening right now or in the foreseeable future that would make it so that those are in conflict. And I will also note that farming is a permitted use within this zone.
Randy.
Okay, because it's so close to the water, I was wondering if, or not, I mean, it's not, it's relatively close to the lake, so it just doesn't sound to me that there's anything as far as the proximity to the lake that is an issue.
No, yeah.
Because if you're building a building, that's actually less farmable land. Or solar panels, there's less likely that there's going to be contamination to the lake for many farming practices.
Right. Yeah, and again, the farming practices are not, those are not changed by being in the conservation zone or being in the ag district. It's really just what is permitted by zoning, and the restriction there is on the size of the building.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I'm hoping folks from the town will maybe come to the public hearing and that will help inform us a little more.
Yeah, and I will just note that I did follow up. They provided that very brief memo. I did follow up asking if they would like to provide additional input to this committee, and they declined. And I did also send them the agenda for this meeting twice to let them know. I mean, I said that the meeting was happening, and then I sent them the agenda, and they declined. So
that's helpful background information. Randy.
Answer my question.
Oh. Other questions right now on this parcel? I'll say I'm inclined to go along with what the Ag and Farmland Protection Board decided. I don't see any glaring reason not to, but I suppose the next step is a public hearing anyway. Yeah.
Great. So then I'll just briefly run through the other changes. I don't think there will be other things that warrant a lot of discussion. So number 2 and 3 on the Town Ulysses map here, those are ag properties that are outside of the hamlet zoning area. They do not, let's see, in ag, in number 2, there is ag assessment properties in that area that's being proposed to be added. There's also some farm properties that aren't receiving agricultural assessment, but we can see from tax parcel information and from the air photos that they have some agriculture on them. And they are outside of the higher density zoning areas and adjacent to existing ag district. And then the other change in Ulysses is
along Teganic Creek in A on the map. Those properties are owned by the state park system and don't seem to make sense to have in the ag district. That's Ulysses. The next one is Enfield. There's a addition proposed along the northern portion there. That's on Christian Hill Road. It's a property that has farmland on it, and it's a hole in the district. That's why that was proposed for addition. And then also in the town of Enfield, along Enfield Falls Road, 327 there, there's a number of properties labeled A, proposed for removal from the district. These are properties that have either it's forested and or residential, and there's not agriculture there, and it's not really adjacent to agriculture. Yeah.
When you remove a parcel, and you may have mentioned this earlier, and I'm still just trying to wrap my arms around all this.
Yeah.
Do you provide notice that they're being removed, and
Right.
are there any objections to any of these being removed?
Right, good question. So yes, everybody received a letter notifying them that their property was being proposed for removal. They have 3 weeks where they can respond by calling me to talk to me, and then I provide that information to the Ag and Farmland Protection Board. In this area, we did have a property owner that requested not to be removed. That's where my mouse is on the screen there. So it's a property, and so it's not being removed. He doesn't have active farming, he does, but he is interested in doing farming moving forward, and he does a lot of habitat restoration work on his property. He gets grants from agencies like the DEC and wasn't sure whether being removed from the district would impact that. So that's an example of, we heard back from him, and so we left him in the district.
Great, thank you.
Okay, moving on to Newfield. We have a number of properties here that on the northeastern part of the town, in number 1 and number 2, that receive ag assessment and are adjacent to existing ag district. So we would propose those to be added. And then one parcel labeled A on the map at the northern portion of the town that is just a little blip of a residential property that's by itself without any ag district around it, and we would propose that that be removed. And sorry, number 3 on the map as well, similar to number 1 and 2, this parcel receives ag assessment and is adjacent to the ag district. I have a question about the tiny island, which it looks like an island on this map, but is it not adjacent to all that ag district at the south end of Enfield? It is adjacent to that. I guess we kind of looked at that as an unnecessary bump in. It's not really adjacent to, there's enough of a buffer between it and other agricultural properties that having that little extra blip doesn't really make a lot of sense. But it is, you're right, it is adjacent to the ag district. That makes sense. Okay, town of Danby. There's one large addition to the property, or to the ag district, number 1 there, and that's land that is being farmed. I think some of those receive ag assessment, but many of them do not. But it is an area of the town that has good soils and has been identified in town planning efforts as a place for farmland protection. That's supported by the town to add those.
There's also a small property number 2. This is the only one that had a landowner request to be added, and I think you did not receive the inclusion request form in your packet, and I had intended to. Did you receive that?
Yeah, we have it.
You have the inclusion request form. Okay, great. So number 2 is just a small property. It's 1.7 acres, and he has an apiary and nursery orchard on that property. And it's adjacent to existing ag district. And then for removals, there's an island parcel, number A, that just makes sense to remove that one because it doesn't have any adjacent ag, or the ag district is not adjacent. And then B is the hamlet of West Danby. And that was another one actually so that's zoned for higher intensity development. The town of Danby really is trying to direct development into those hamlets and away from the rural areas. And it's existing residential development in fairly small lots. There was one property owner there that we heard from that requested to be left in the district. She's not currently farming, but is interested in having future farming. It's kind of her retirement property. Oops, where did it go? And so we did talk to the town about that property, and they were comfortable leaving that in. So you can see there's kind of like one little line in there that is not being proposed for removal. And then finally, we have the town of Ithaca. The additions here, number 1, that's mostly ag assessed property and an adjacent piece of farmland that's not receiving ag assessment, but it is being farmed and it's adjacent to the district. Number 2 is an ag assessed property down near that intersection of Enfield Falls Road and 13. Number 3 is currently in the Ag District 1, and we're proposing to have that added to Ag District 2 just to make the review process simpler moving forward. Because right now what's been happening is that town has to go through this every 4 years, even though it's a very small little bit. So that's being proposed to be added into Ag District 2, but is currently in Ag District 1. And then for removals, A on the map is, that's just north of residential development in a higher density zoning area or medium residential development area. And it's brushy land, it's not currently being farmed. And then B, these are properties that were requested to have them removed by the town of Ithaca Planning Committee. And the northern piece of that is residential lots. The southern parcel there, right by the letter B, is actually a town park. Are there any questions on any of that, or anything you want to go over in more detail?
I don't see any. Thank you, Crystal.
Yeah. So that's all I have in terms of kind of walking through that, and then we have the resolution that would be for the public hearing.
Yes, so the resolution is scheduling a public hearing for the continuation of and modifications to Agricultural District Number 2, located on the west side of Cayuga Lake and encompassing the towns of Newfield, Ulysses, Ithaca, and parts of Danby, doc ID 12165. Randy moves, Susan seconds. And I'll note that in here, the date for the public hearing is February 20, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Any comments, discussion on this? Let's vote. Susan,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Annie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Fantastic. Crystal, do you have anything else for us? All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that detailed presentation. That was very helpful.
Can I ask a point of information?
Yes.
After the public hearing, does a formal resolution accept this come back to us? And then it goes to the legislature?
Yeah, yes, it does. It comes back to peak and then to the full legislature.
It'll come back to peak with the seeker.
Got it. Okay,
That final determination will then go to the Commissioner of Ag and Markets.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so public hearing, then seeker, then we'll see it again. Annie?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, we are on to committee members' reports. Does anybody have a report? Randy?
I have a comment I thought was very interesting. This morning, I was listening to radio, and the federal government's ag department is offering grants for people, farmers that convert to propane for numerous projects. And I assume it must be converting from diesel. I'm not really sure, but I just thought that was interesting that they're offering numerous grants to farmers. So.
Interesting. Any other reports or comments on your preferences around liaison assignments, which, as Andy said, we don't have to share now, but if you have them, might as well. Randy?
I'm on the Soil and Water Board. I'd like to remain on that one as well.
Excellent. Same. Greg, and then Amanda.
Annie, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe I have liaison appointments for this committee.
That's correct, Greg.
Okay.
So as far as we know right now, there's one for the Ag and Farm Board, which meets, I believe, monthly. And in the winter, they meet
Lunch.
in, I believe, around noon at lunchtime.
Yes.
And so those folks there can correct me. And then in the farming months, they meet in the evening. And food is always provided, at least it used to be.
Yep.
They're saying yes here, and Abigail's saying there's a 3-month break in the whole meeting process. Amanda?
Hi. I'm going to be on this committee this year, and I'm, depending on timing of liaison appointments, I can take on another one probably. I don't know if you're going to talk more extensively about it at the next meeting, Annie, but I should be able to take at least one of something.
Okay, great, Amanda. And you're already, is it the water resource?
No, I got.
Or CUYO?
No.
Or you used to be?
Yeah, I used to be. I think Darby does the Intermunicipal organization.
Okay.
I don't know. Susan, were you the one on?
I was on Water Resources Council. Oh, and the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, yeah.
I can't speak for Annie, but I imagine we can discuss this in detail next meeting or before then when we've got the schedules of all the meetings to look at. All right, any other committee member reports or liaison comments? All right, sounds like we can adjourn, so we're adjourned. Enjoy the rest of the morning.
Thank you, Veronica.
Was there a capital payment by chance, or?
Oh, yes. It was in here as an information item.
Don't mind me.
Okay.